Back in 1988, I began a 9-month journey to identify and define my life values or principles. I call them foundational life principles. Over that 9 month, I developed a list. Initially, the list was about 33 principles. I've narrowed it down over the years to about 17 now. And once I got those values identified and defined, I put each one on an index card, laminated the card, and then every day I would review a specific value. So every day during the month I was looking at a specific value. Over the last few years, as we move more towards the digital age, I've kind of changed the way I do that and actually have a value set up on each day of the month, the first 17 days of the month anyway. And so on my calendar, and what happens, I'll get popped up a reminder, and I actually go and look at the principle and review that principle. Yesterday was the first day of the new year, and I had as my value a positive mental attitude. And I want to talk a little bit about that. So I recently heard of a pastor who moved to a new church field. The first Sunday he was there, after the service, a gentleman came up to him and invited him to go on an airplane ride. This gentleman was an amateur pilot and had his little small, single-engine aircraft at a regional airport. So the pastor was pretty excited about being able to see the church field from a vantage point he wouldn't otherwise see. And so he met the pastor the designated time, the designated place. They got in the plane, and the pilot took off. After they were in the air, the pastor noticed the instrument panel, and he noticed this panel had a lot of different gauges and things on it, and so he's asking about those. And right in the middle of the instrument panel, there was a gauge that the pilot told him was called the attitude indicator. Now, the pastor was a little bit surprised about that. He didn't realize that there was such a thing on an aircraft. If you fly aircraft or are familiar with those things, you probably know about this already. I'm sure you do. But the pilot went on to explain to the pastor that when the attitude of the plane is up, the plane rises, climbs, if you will. When the attitude of the plane is down, the plane will dive. And he described that the attitude indicator was really the position of the plane in reference to the horizon. I think about that. I think about that is not only true with airplanes, but it's also true with you and me. Our attitude really does determine the position of our lives. You may say that our attitude determines our altitude. If our attitude is good, then we move up. If our attitude is bad, we go down. So what is the attitude? I like this definition, and that is that attitude is the orientation of our mind in reference to our life. In other words, it's how we're thinking about our life. The word orientation refers to our position. And I said the orientation of our mind. So it's the position of our mind. The word orientation is often used in reference to a compass, particularly related to true north. So we can see our true position when we get oriented. So here's a question for you. What is your orientation? What is your attitude about your life right now, right this moment, today? Now, I wouldn't ask you a question if I didn't think about it myself. So when I ask myself that question, I think about things that affect my mental state. And I ask myself questions like this: have I allowed outside things that I cannot control, to negatively affect my thinking about my life today? Honestly, I have to admit that I often do that. I know it's not very smart, because it doesn't make any sense for me to allow something that I have no control over to control me that way. But I often do that. So what I'm going to do is, in the next couple of days, I'm going to share with you some things that I have learned about attitude and a strategy that I use to maintain a positive mental attitude. Now, I don't suspect that any of these things will be new to you. As a matter of fact, I think probably each one will simply be a reminder of things that you already know. But I'm looking forward to taking a little time sharing with you these things. Hope you have a great day. We'll talk again tomorrow as we look at these reminders about our attitude.